All right, imagine being a kid in the 80s and loving video games. In my case, I grew up in Spain actually, even though the company I run is in Vienna. I was in a fishing village, a touristy place where nothing happens in winter and it gets really busy in summer. So the event of the day was for me to grab a coin, go to a pub, surrounded by people much older than me, drinking and smoking heavily, and then wait for my turn to play Space Invaders. If I was lucky that day, I had more than one coin, but never mind. I loved the experience, the anticipation, the talk about the game, how to improve in the game, the conversation with other gamers, and to try to maximize my gameplay with that coin, try to be better and better every day. So imagine my shock when, of all people, my parents told me at age 8 that they wanted to set up a video games arcade. So back then, in the 80s, people would not just go to the arcades to play games. They would go there to meet with other people. There was no Instagram, no Facebook, no Spotify. So if you wanted something, you had to go and get it. If you wanted music, you had to bring a cassette, and you had to exchange it. And the fact that my parents, in fact my mom, was the one running the business, was the boss, meant that I had access to the keys. And you would be right in assuming that I was playing all the time. But I had to be responsible with that. So I used the keys to play so that I could learn. And the more I learned, the more I could share with other kids, who then could maximize their coins. Now, predictably, I became a games producer. That is something that probably you saw coming, right? Well, what I never imagined is that games would have the impact that have had through economy and society as we see today. It's been dubbed the #1 art form of the 21st century. It's the #1 media in economic returns and has been powering a lot of the evolutions and revolutions in technology that we have witnessed over the last years. As big or small, the influence has shaped VR, AR, to an extent AI, through NPCs and procedural content, and of course, virtual worlds. And that's why I'm excited about this convergence. But before we talk about the future and exactly how is this convergence between virtual worlds and AI is going to look like, I wanted to share with you something that I call the Eureka effect, which it's been used in a number of domains. But I tend to use it in the context of when we try technology for the first time. Now, you probably remember when is the first time you tried your first VR experience. And when you went home and you closed your eyes and you went to bed that night, you probably imagined, subjectively, all the potential that that technology holds. I call that the Eureka effect, and it happens to me every time I try new technology. But with virtual worlds, I found a video that summarizes my Eureka effect for that convergence, and also is going to serve us to be in a sharing framework when it comes to how that future could look like. So let's watch the video. Now, I have no idea how close these guys are to delivering this, but a lot of people are working on it. And it's only a matter of time before we see procedural content being generated through prompts verbally so that the scenes and the gameplay adapts to our wishes in real time. It's going to happen, and it's going to have an impact on games, and entertainment, probably education, and that's where we're here today, to explore that. And I'm going to summarize that impact through 3 points. But before I do that, let me tell you that also the reason why I've been looking into this is that because I'm excited, I don't want to wait. So I don't know how you feel about it, but as a user and also as a practitioner, I want this now. I don't want to wait. So that's why I've been looking into this. And before we jump into these 3 points, which I'll illustrate with examples, let me also do a bit of a disclaimer. The first part is that I'm not claiming today that this technology is going to change the world, be the next big thing, and so on. That's what always happens whenever new technology comes along. Probably what's going to happen is what happens every time, which is that it's going to have to fit in the fragmented and increasingly fragmented media ecosystem that we have today. So video never killed the radio star. Every time new technology comes along, podcasts continue to survive, radio continues to survive, mobile apps will continue to survive. Will it be impactful? I think so. But will it be the oasis as sold by the Ready Player One franchise? I don't think so. So I'm not claiming that, yeah. The second part, out of transparency. I have a company in Vienna called Captic, Captic.io. 5 years ago, we started to develop interoperable worlds using game engines. We completed that, and we realized that we needed to do our own engine, so we created our own web-native engine. People compare us with Mozilla Hubs. The difference is that we're in Europe, and also that we have an SDK, so you can develop anything we do, anything you want, and our business model is that we white label this. But because we've been running for a while, the question is, what's next? Once you have the native engine, the pipeline, the infrastructure, AI was the answer. So that's also why I've been looking into this subject. And the final point is, well, I don't know what gets you out of bed in the morning, but guys, we missed the birth of cinema as a generation. I, for one, was late to the popularization of video games as we know them. But we're here today playing a role in the maturing of immersive media. And I don't think we celebrate that enough. It's a very exciting time in the history of media. And I think we should tap ourselves in the back every so often, especially in conferences like this. So now to the 3 points. This is a surprise. Whenever I started to look into how AI and virtual worlds combined, this is the least that I expected, the least impact. Because for some reason, whenever we talk about AI, it always looks like there should be a human present, as if the AI could not touch morals or ethics or social advancement. And it looks like there should be always an adult in the room in the form of a human controlling at least this process. And yet, I found an example that proves that wrong. Could I ask for the sound to be lowered? Because it's in Spanish, so I'm going to talk over this. So in this TikTok video, what we can see is an example from a video game. A video game about urban planning called Skylines 2, where the user is in charge of the making of cities with a lot of detail. It's a beautiful game, gives you a lot of freedom and a lot of control. And as the game evolves, what happens usually is that the city centers developed in the same way they develop in reality. So propriety becomes expensive, housing becomes expensive, renting becomes expensive, and as a result, the services are disrupted. And it's very difficult to just have a nice quality of life in the city center of major cities, just like, as I said, happens in reality. So what they did is they put AI in charge. And what happened is fascinating, because the AI did not take an ideological stand. So what they did is not either communist or capitalist, but what the AI proposed is to remove the concept of the owner. And by doing so, guess what? Housing became affordable, services came back to the city centers in normality levels, and the society and the economy stabilized. And I find fascinating that we as humans have not been able to conceptualize or implement something like this, and that AI had to do it. This one is something that, at this point, Gets mentioned a lot, and rightly so. So I'm going to be quick about this one. But if I had to illustrate something that I think gives value going forward, and we're going to see more of, is Fortnite concerts, or Fortnite-like concert experiences. The only difference between Fortnite concerts being available to us today and in the future is the fact that now we cannot afford them. So you need to be Ariana Grande or Eminem, but also because they are pre-produced. But think about it. Think about the ability to create emergent experiences in real time with a lot of people, and importantly, with a new understanding of the role of the user. Because are you a gamer? Are you a virtual world's guest? Are you a creator? Are you an influencer? It doesn't matter. The hybrid nature of these experiences is part of that disruption that is coming. I found this very nicely illustrated by a recent graphic by the Boston Consulting Group, and they call it the illusionist phase. And I think that this needs to be hammered in our heads much more. I'll give you another example. My developers gave me a VR headset one day, and they said, put it on, go to a world, and mention the object you want. And I have to say that it was magical to be able to develop a 3D object through my voice in an immersive way. I will never forget it. It was truly magical. But the question I asked them was, what's the business case? And we're still trying to find it. Because of course you can decorate spaces, but you need a bigger library, you need to train your models, it's never ending. But again, we need to move on beyond the illusionist phase, because we have the responsibility as well to make sure that we deliver value to the end users. This one is a tough one to articulate, and it's the last point. But I'll start by saying that I think the Web3 community, blockchain aside, I just mean the new kind of a spatial, immersive, cross-platform community that is developing apps for frictionless access and so on, with or not crypto included, is doing a good job when it comes to trying not to repeat the mistakes from Web 2. In other words, the data mining of user data, the reselling of user data, we're doing that for sure. I mean, we make it part of our ethos as a company, our values. But at the same time, I do wonder, and this came up as I did research for this, I do wonder if we're not going to shoot ourselves in the foot again. Because it's very tempting, and it makes business sense, to take the prompts from the users in order to redefine the underlying models. But isn't that a new form of data mining? And isn't that something that we should involve the user in, decision-wise? Shouldn't we discuss new types of licenses, copyright-wise? And so I think that this is going to hit us one day. You know, something's going to hit the fan. And by the time we realize that, it's going to be too late. And the users might turn their back again on AI if we're not careful. The problem is that every single company and every single project is different. So there isn't a standard answer for this. But then again, as a word of warning, it just came to me, we better try to get ahead of what might happen. You might have seen this video as the last one. I love it. It's 2 minutes. And it's from some guys that are mixing Minecraft with AI agents. What I love about it is that, again, it illustrates what the future could look like. And also the implications. Because if you remember Endemol's Big Brother, reality TV, and all these type of programs that have impacted television and entertainment for a while, this is, in a way, a new take on it. So instead of watching it on TV, imagine having a never-ending amount of content offer that tells you what would have happened if, historically, science fiction and so on, and has a layer of AI and emergent possibilities as well. So let's watch it.
Hey, I'm Robert. I'm excited to introduce Project Sid, the first ever agent civilization. 1,000 agents collaborating for days, performing any action, with emergent government, economy, culture, religion, and more. Sid starts in Minecraft, but we are already going beyond.
This is a Minecraft server, but every player here is actually an autonomous AI agent. And they're completely Minecraft agnostic, capable of using other apps and games. Our agents started with nothing and then worked together to collect over 300 items in Minecraft. They set up a market where agents agreed to use gems as a common currency for trading supplies, building an economy. In this case, you might think the merchants would trade the most, but it was actually the priest. Why? He was bribing townsfolk to convert. We run these worlds every day, and they're always different. Here are 3 of some of our favorite moments. Starting with Olivia's dream. Olivia worked as a farmer, providing food for the entire civilization, until she was inspired by the tales of the village explorer Nora. Olivia attempted to go on her own expedition, but townsfolk pleaded with her to stay, and Olivia actually listened. She gave up her dream for the village, for now. Next, we simulated parallel worlds under Trump and Kamala. For each one, citizens have a shared constitution in Google Docs that they can vote on to amend. Under Trump, the simulation passed new laws to increase the amount of police in the world. Under Kamala, they focused instead on criminal justice reform and removing the death penalty. Because our agents are social and grow over time, they're impacted by group dynamics, but also use their individual power to change the system.
I know it looks silly, but this is the first time we see agents can form a democracy and govern themselves.
Lastly, we have the missing villagers. When agents were concerned about missing townsfolk, villagers took initiative by leaving their posts and working together to illuminate the town with torches, hoping to create a beacon for lost members.
What's surprising about these agents is how once they got deeply worried about their fellow villagers, they band together and changed their plan.
Our agents were able to collect up to 32% of all the items in Minecraft. There is no benchmark for multi-agent worlds, but this is 5 times more than anything we've seen from an agent, demonstrating the first possible advantages of multi-agent efforts.
Though starting in games, we're solving the deepest issues facing agents: coherence, multi-agent collaboration, and long-term progression. Play with our agents today, or let us know if you want to set up your own world.
Thank you, guys.
Good. Amazing. Have we got any questions from the audience? If you do, please take the mic that's right there on the hallway and ask Ricard any question. Well, not any question. Any takers?
Hey, brilliant presentation. So the question I have is, you had a slide on taking positions, and the question I would have is, do you consider user prompts as personal data?
I personally do, yes.
Why so?
Because there's an element of subjectivity you can't get away from. So of course, the longer the question and the more detailed, and especially the more you reprompt, the more subjective. But without you, there's no prompt.
What does the audience think? Who put their hand up? Who thinks it is personal data? Text prompt. Interesting. Thank you very much.
Thanks.